I might have some more unwanted excitement. I was taking the four-wheeler over here to do some spot spraying. I wanted to shoot some Roundup in the edges of the corn, and before I did that, I wanted to use some 2,4-D to spray some broadleaves in spots where I didn't want them. So this bin site was new a year ago, and we never really seeded any grass down. There's a lot of weeds growing, so my plan was to spray 2,4-D around the bin and try to get those broadleaves killed, and then come back in a couple weeks and actually drill or at least broadcast some grass seed. There's also some poison ivy around up here, so I was going to hit a little bit of 2,4-D in the road ditch there and see if I could sort of put a dent in that somewhat as well. And some brush growing around those pine trees, whatever. Anyway, going down the road, something made a noise, and then it sort of like, it was a little, not, I wondered if it was a tire, I guess. It was more of kind of a bang, but it seems to be something with the motor. It runs. It has oil. I'm not sure what's going on, but the throttle as I crank here. That rattly noise shouldn't be there. I have no idea what that is. Could be like a timing chain or something maybe. But if it is, no bueno. So I kind of think I'm gonna spray a little bit what I can reach with the four-wheeler sitting here. The trouble is I've got 16 or 26 rather gallons of 2,4-D mix in the back of this right now that I really would like to get off of there if this thing has issues. Might have a project that I didn't think I needed. Well, I was able to get this sprayed off and back home. I looked at it a little bit, and the rattling noise that I had before seems to be gone now, and I don't know exactly what's up with that. However, the symptom that I'm definitely having is that the clutch is really grabby. Normally it uses some sort of a centrifugal clutch, so that when the engine is in idle, it's not putting power to the wheels. You have to throttle up so that it spins faster, and then the clutch engages. And the way that it is now, whenever you switch into gear, it wants to pull the four-wheeler forward, even though the clutch shouldn't be engaged at idle. And there's also a little window where you can see the oil level through the side, and there's a little kind of star-shaped metal piece behind that I can tell has moved. I'm not exactly sure what's behind that cover, but since we seem to be having clutch issues, I'm thinking maybe something let loose in the clutch, and therefore was rattling when the engine was running, and then it expelled the broken pieces maybe or something. Or jammed them in somewhere that they're now catching instead of making noise. So I have a copy of the service manual for this in PDF form, and I'm going to have to take a look at that and try to figure out what might be going on and see if I can get some parts ordered, because I'm basically going to be gone the next 2 weeks and don't really have time to tear it down today. So the adventure continues. Out here scouting some soybeans, just kind of seeing how things look. This is the farm that's a ways away from the home place. Definitely got some bugs chewing on leaves a little bit. Probably mostly Japanese beetles, I would guess. Maybe some other stuff. I see we have some Japanese beetles here. I also see there's a painted lady butterfly, which is Thistle Caterpillars. There's some more, there's like 4 more Japanese beetles over there. Could be some bean leaf beetles down in here too. They may or may not be very visible right now. But things are looking really pretty decent, I think. These actually, yeah, there's some little bugs down at the bottom. Quite a few blooms. Still blooming. These are like a 3-5, group 3-5. There's a Japanese beetle hanging out on the bottom side of the leaf. But they have a good height to them. They're probably, upper thigh height on me, so probably close to 3 feet, I would say. Look pretty healthy, other than bug damage, but there should be a good amount of leaf tissue, even with the damage that the plant soybean should still be able to do fine, I think. The Thistle Caterpillar situation is a little concerning. There aren't caterpillars out here yet, but there have been a lot of those painted lady butterflies around the last week or so, which means that they're probably laying eggs, and there's going to be caterpillars maybe in another few days to a week. It seems like there's more pods on this one than there were on those. There's actually quite a few pods on it, actually. They're branched out pretty good also. Let's see if we can find one to pull up here. So that's not one of the bigger ones that was there, but looks like we're getting pretty decent branching early for it being a 15-inch row. And all of these little balls on the roots are the nodules, so that's the nitrogen that's fixed by the rhizobia, which is just a feature of legumes, but basically beneficial creatures in the soil that trade with the soybean for nutrients and then get the nitrogen, which then carries over for the corn crop the next year. Overall, can't complain. Have good soil moisture. It's not muddy, but it did shower yesterday and is definitely soft down and underneath the canopy here. There are some weeds coming, mostly morning glories, it seems like. I don't see anything sticking up over top of the soybeans here. I have seen a few fields where I've got some water hemp, it looks like, sticking up, or maybe some button weeds in a few places. These look pretty clean though, other than the morning glories. Checking out some corn now. This is one of the farms that is not spectacular soil, although up here should be pretty decent. I did notice a couple weeks ago, last week maybe when I was down, I walked out here and noticed that a lot of the lower leaves were kind of dying back some. And I think that might be nitrogen deficiency. This also is a pretty tall hybrid, so it also might just be not getting very much light down there, or it may have sort of aborted those to get more nutrients up higher in the plant when it was super dry here before it rained a couple weeks ago. In the past, this normally has been a hybrid that stood really well, although the stalks, some of them look pretty spindly. So we'll have to see kind of how things finish out here. There is some leaf disease. I believe gray leaf spot. Usually, in the past, this has been a pretty healthy hybrid also, and the upper leaves don't have very much. There's a few spots here and there. Usually kind of the ear leaf and above is what you're really concerned about as far as plant health for grain fill, which looks like still in pretty decent shape on stuff. Let's find a spot to grab an ear here. Whenever I grab an ear, I kind of try to find a spot where we've got 3 fairly consistently spaced. There's a mushroom till it's rained a bunch lately. So we'll rip off an ear here. So this would be a 110-day corn, I believe, which is sort of shorter season for the stuff that I grow. Not a great looking ear. There's a corn borer or something. 16 by 36 is probably a pretty normal ear size for us. These have definitely either developed a lot since I've pulled an ear off elsewhere, or this corn is a little ways ahead of some other stuff. You can see there's a few kernels that have aborted or didn't get pollinated, but generally the kernels around it will fill in for the most part. So that's nothing really too concerning at this point. Looks like it pollinated pretty well out to the tip, and we were getting kernels pretty well out to the tip. That may mean that I didn't plant a high enough population, but it could tip back a little bit still too. And we have had really pretty good growing conditions this season other than that dry spell. And we caught rain at an opportune time that I don't know that that's going to hurt us too much, hopefully. Different bean field, looking things over a little bit. If I remember right, I believe the indros would be a 3-0 bean, and then probably the ones out here. There's a deer right there. Check that out. Hiding down in the beans, you can see its antlers sticking up. See the velvet on them? Wow, crazy. Hiding in the track. It's gonna run off. Shit, there's two. 6-pointers maybe? Weird. Tearing up my bean field. Probably been eating them too. Anyway, beans. So we're out of the indros now. Sometimes it's kind of hard. We're right inside the driveway, so this is probably not the most representative of how great these beans could look. So we got some Japanese beetles reproducing here also. A couple there. Definitely doing some damage. So here we're into the rows that run this way, which would be the main part of the field. So these are like a 3-5. Oh, look at the Japanese beetles there. There's like 5, 6, quite a few of them around, really. Look pretty similar. Not a lot of pods. A lot of blooms, though. The pods are, I mean, there's pods there. They're just really tiny. There are a few weeds sticking up here. Looks like some volunteer corn. There's some water hemp. A few water hemp out there, just sticking up above the beans. Hopefully they were late enough ones that they won't produce a lot of seed, but I doubt if I'm that lucky. Some button weeds out there. I think if you can see the lighter green colors. Yeah, somewhere out in there. It's hard to tell on the little tiny screen here. But again, things are green. I feel like soybeans are really kind of hard to tell how good they're going to be until you run a combine through them. They're green, they're alive, they have moisture. What else can you do at this point, I think? So I'm over on the other side of the same field. So we've got some beans here and then corn across the little grass lane here. These I believe should be like a 3-8 soybean, so not really any pods on them yet, it doesn't look like, at least right here, which is not unexpected. So they will mature later and sort of have a longer period of vegetative growth before they start setting pods. Again, they're pretty healthy. Seeing quite a few Japanese beetles. Some damage. I think the economic threshold supposedly is like 20% defoliation, which we're not anywhere near at this point. My seed and chemical rep tells me that he sees a economic return with less damage than 20%. I don't know. If soybeans were $10 or $12, maybe I'd be more excited about spending a bunch more on them. The corn, though, I really like this corn, I think. This is the first year that I've planted this hybrid, and obviously the yield monitor will tell the true story, but it seems very healthy. There is some leaf disease, actually maybe more leaf disease than I realized. Pretty small lesions, though, which means that the plant has pretty good resistance, or should. That's my understanding. Agronomy is probably one of my weaker aspects of my farming skill set. But this stuff looked really awesome early. Had a really good looking stalk. The upper leaves still look pretty healthy. Like there's a few lesions on them, but not a lot. Let's pull an ear off on these and see how they look. So I did not spray fungicide on this. I did end up doing about a quarter of my corn acres, and hit primarily one hybrid that was particularly susceptible to gray leaf spot. left a test strip, or a check strip rather, on one field that was all that hybrid, and then sprayed a little bit onto a second hybrid in the other field at the home place. So that's not a spectacular looking year, really. Some of them, this is probably not the best looking year of the stuff that I walked by. It was just a random pull. But we're 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, it's 18 around, so that potentially is a big year. The kernels don't look gigantic at this point, but it's hard to tell. It doesn't look like it has as many rows as the other year that I pulled, but we'll count them here. 1, 2, 28, 29, 30, 30, 32, somewhere in that range. So 18 by 30. Not a bad year. I did count that right, didn't I? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. Yep. I don't see as many missed kernels on this one. There are a few, but not as many as there were on that one I pulled out of the other field. As we get closer to finishing up, I normally will kind of try to pull maybe 3 or 4 ears of each hybrid, and then count kernels and kind of try to guesstimate what the yield might be. Not super accurate, but you can usually get a little bit of an idea to figure out like how things might play out as far as bin space or lack thereof. With the way that my rotation is this year, I have less acres of corn, so bin space shouldn't be an issue at all, really. But I normally try to kind of guess a little bit, or at least keep track of what sort of kernel counts on a given hybrid might equate to a given yield after we combine the field. So right now we're up in the northwest corner of the field at the home farm, which is probably some of the best dirt that I farm, and also was pasture until maybe 10 or 12 years ago. I'm not sure exactly how long, but anyway, had perennial grasses here and hasn't been row cropped as long as some other spots, so there maybe is a little less disease pressure because of that also. So we're going to walk in and check this out. This was sprayed with fungicide, I think. We didn't actually see the plane, but they say they sprayed it. So it'll be interesting to see how things go, because we've not used fungicide before. This particular hybrid is pretty susceptible to gray leaf spot, which it's my understanding most of the leaf disease stuff that's showing up so far is gray leaf at this point. Really like this hybrid. It's will yield really well on good soil. I haven't put it on anything real rough. I don't have a lot of really rough stuff, and usually don't try to put the expensive stuff on the poor ground. But usually yields really well. I believe this is 110 day also, maybe. The only thing that I dislike about it is it often has kind of poor husk coverage, which means the tip of the ear will stick out past the husk tissue, and then can get water down the ear. Like, the ears don't seem to drop as easily as some hybrids. So when you get later season rains in September, say, as the plant is sort of shutting down, you can funnel water down to the bottom of the ear, and then you end up with kernels sprouting at the bottom of the ear. But it's usually a pretty good yielder. So we're going to find kind of 3 fairly evenly spaced ones. Say this guy or this guy. I guess we'll go for this one. My expectation is that these ears will look pretty nice, which at this point doesn't have much to do with the fungicide. The fungicide is more to help the plant stay alive as long as possible so that it can pack more starch into the kernels that it has. So I'm guessing that's going to be 16, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, actually 18. 18 around, and really good length, 4 through 5, 35 or so, so 18 by 34, maybe we'll call it. Pretty good looking for this point. Maybe, is there something been, thought maybe there was something that had been chewing on it there, but maybe I just damaged it a little bit, pulling the husks off. Not bad. We'll take it.